All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Manny, Goose, and Danny. Reactivated. In this episode, we have special guest Danny Cuevas. We cover topics that range from being a corporate professional, motivation, choosing career paths, human potential, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Lance Armstrong and Coleman Young. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, Danny, I think this is like your fourth time on here. It might be something like that.
Yeah, I usually don't say too much when I'm here, but I'm here today, baby.
The quiet type. I like it. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
You know.
Perfect for podcasting.
So tonight we need a little bit more, a little volume from you. You know what I mean?
I got you.
But anyway, so thank you for joining us. For those of us who do not know who you are, let us know who you are and what you do.
So, I'm Danny Cuevas. I'm Manny's brother, a little bit younger, much cooler in every way.
Wow.
So I put that right from the beginning. That's got to know.
I agree.
But I like to say I'm a jack of all trades, trying to become a master of some of them.
Nice.
Pretty much lifelong student, nurse, fitness professional, trying to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Through alternative means besides taking a pill as it pertains to medicine.
Sure.
So, all kinds of different avenues to go through that. But at this point in my career, I'm just trying to focus on the nursing part because I've done the fitness part for a while. And having multiple disciplines, it's hard to focus on everything at once. It's better to just do everything at one particular subject at one time. So right now, it's all about nursing.
That's awesome. So how did you get started in the industry? Was that something, and you said lifelong, learner, so to speak, but you've legitimately been in college or in school for like almost a decade now.
Yeah, so I'm working on my third degree. So it's an interesting way I started out with nursing. So always wanted to go into nursing. So when I started nursing at my first school, IUP, that's Indiana University, Pennsylvania, literally my first day in my first clinical, we started at 6. At 6:30, someone pooped all over me, and it was lime green.
Wow.
We call that a game changer.
Yeah.
The green.
And you were in love with the profession you chose.
So literally, because I'm not a little guy, so I'm like 6'2", I'm like pretty lanky. I am in some, for lack of a better term, a very rural nursing home, which don't have a lot of supplies.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anything that fit me. So I sat naked in the room while they washed all my clothes because this guy had like a crazy contagious disease called C. diff, which is like not cool to like pass around.
Wow.
So yeah, he pooped all over me, and then the next semester I changed my major. So that went to exercise science, but it was always in my heart. So after my long journey, I ended up going back to nursing as I guess an adult learner, so to speak.
And when you say adult, how old?
Oh God, it was 2 years ago. Now I'm like 27-ish, 26 when I started.
And you started this journey at what, 18?
Yeah, I literally not stopped going to school. I'm currently in school right now to finish up my RN to get my BSN. So I'm in statistics right now. So I've already passed it 3 times, but you know how the education system is. They want me to do it one more time.
Just to
one
make sure
more go. Let's be sure about this guy.
One more time.
All right, so let's jump into the topics that you're really here for. So now we know you have a professional background. I am very fascinated with the topic of human potential, and I'll tell you why. I genuinely feel like there's areas in my life, I'm probably in your all's life as well, that you kind of maybe felt, or people might have told you that, you're almost put your limitations on you, right? Whereas it's like, go to school, do this, do that, but in your mind, there might have been that you wanted something more, or you were cool with that. That's okay. In my mind, I wanted something more. And I a lot of times it was just I didn't know exactly what that was, but I felt like there was something else there. Almost like, in video games, you go level 1, level 2, and I felt like there was another level I needed to go into, and I felt like what was placed on me was like, no, you stay at level 3. And in my mind, there was a level 4. I don't know what that was. and maybe I'm currently in it or going through it. I have no idea. But human potential is very important to me, especially now that I have kids. I'm trying to constantly talk growth and expansion into their minds, even though they're young. There's numerous studies shown that the first 7 years of a little human's life are very impressionable, and a lot of what is said to them during those those years. And my oldest is 5, so I'm just constantly pouring love on him, saying positive things, and I just want the best for him. I don't want limitations, and it was definitely not my parents, because my parents always talked positive into me. It was more other influences around me. With that being said, what is your take, just a very general take on human potential?
So with human potential, I mean, most people already see kind of what they want to do. And when it comes down to it, they go for it, but how hard are you going for it? So if you're just there to get a degree, like we'll just use college because I'm familiar with college. You just get the degree, but it doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're talking about in your field. Doesn't mean you're living it. Like with a trade, Goose is a barber, he's living it. He's working with his hands every day. He's in it. He's watching other barbers. He's learning a couple things. His skill set grows over time. But you got to want to do it, though, because you can go to some barbershop where these guys are doing high and tight for 40 years, and they're cool with that, which is fine.
True.
But they're not going to become a better barber in that way. So it depends on the person. You can't teach some of that. Now, you can watch someone, and then they can learn and observe. But as it pertains to potential, it really depends on the person and how much they want to attack the world, for lack of a better term. Like
Very broad. It's very broad.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. The thing is with a lot of people, though, is even if you get the high and tight guy, right, his potential is I feel like he can still become better.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think human potential is one thing. The desire to reach what I'm talking about, level 4 or whatever it is a whole other beast. And I think you're kind of like in between there, what you're saying.
So the best way I can describe it is growth. We're all here to grow at some point, no matter what it is, either chronologically with age or within your profession, doesn't matter. In my heart, I hit puberty just now as it pertains to my profession. I grew so much since 18 years old, and I learned so many different things. Now I'm kind of slowing down with my growth, and how do I apply it all at this point? Because I have all this knowledge, and now where does it go? So now I kind of got to get over the awkward stage of I know all this stuff, I've learned so much, now where do I put it? Yeah. So that's where I'm kind of going with now, because I have the potential to do great things with the knowledge that I have, and I sure paid for it, that's for sure, as it pertains to college. But what do I do with it? So the potential's there, like you said. I just got to go for it. And for anyone, for you here, you have the potential to be national, and everyone can know you.
Yeah.
That's there for you because you're doing it. You're here right now. So there's all potential for everyone, for sure.
It's a fantastic show. I love the show. It's something my son watches. But they gave a great story. It's called Puppy Dog Pals, right? So this whole cartoon is based off little puppies, and they absolutely. Everyone knows dogs. They call dogs, man's best friend. Dogs are obsessed with their masters. They want everything. They want the best for their masters. And so basically they give the perspective of a puppy dog, towards the world. And it's super cute. But there was an episode where they had this little duck, right, that was born, and it somehow became a stray duck, and just the dogs took it in. And this duck didn't know, or no, maybe it was an eagle. I'm sorry. It was an eagle that didn't know it was an eagle. It thought it was a duck. And so it was just following everything the ducks are doing, and just basically swim. And ducks can fly, but just, they keep it at a minimum kind of thing. And this whole time, they kept telling him that he was an eagle. And he was just like, I don't know what that means. I'm a duck. My mom's a duck, blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to tell him, like, no, you got lost along the way, and this mom duck took you in, so to speak. And so that's what I like to think of, something that basic of thinking of the potential. And all of a sudden, he jumps off of like a tree. It's like the classic story.
Sure.
We all seen this in many variations of it. He flies, and he cannot believe it. And he's like, holy smokes, I am an eagle. I can fly. Look at me. I'm flying like 100 feet above the ducks are flying. This whole time I thought I was just a little duck. Here I am, an eagle. Look at the potential, right? And I thought it was fantastic. It's great. But that in itself, it's almost like we put our own limitations and then people put limitations on us. You know, if for the rest of that duck's or that eagle's life, if people called him duck, that boy thought he was a duck. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. They say if you literally put a shark, you could put like a great white. I don't think it'll fit in your fish tank, but you can put a shark in your fish tank and will not outgrow that fish tank. That same shark, you can put the average, I think average length of a shark is 8 feet average. Okay. You put it out in the ocean, that bad boy's going to grow to 8 feet. But if you put him in a little 4-foot tank, he's going to stay 3.5, 4 feet. Right. Because that's what his environment is. So I do think there's something, when we talk about human potential, there's something to be said about the environment. And I don't know what specifically we have to do, you know, as parents. And I know there's a lot of, you know, information out there, but everybody's situation is different. How you create that environment is really, honestly, like I said, the first 7 years is massive to a child's potential, or at least their mindset of what it could be. I'll never forget, my mom used to tell me all the time, you can be whatever you want to be. Always told me that. I grew up very cocky kid. No, I'm only kidding. No. In all seriousness, I was confident, though. It built my confidence in a time where I was in a system that was not building my confidence. So it was very important that my mom, and around that same time, around 7 or 8 years old, I was in a weird situation where I was part of the system that was not, let's just say, generating my mind to become a bigger potential or whatever, or growing that in some level. But at home, my mom, my parents were. So I do believe there's a desire by each individual. There's the potential, and I feel like people say, you know, there's a little exaggeration when someone says, "Oh, your potential is unlimited." I really genuinely don't think we know the full potential of a human.
So going on that, like to piggyback about potential, so shout out to teachers, because they're the people that are rearing everyone. Sure. And I know the exact moment when I took it serious, finally, school. It was, I guess, sophomore year. I'm like going through the motions just enough to not be ineligible for sports. So, you know.
High school?
Yeah, so barely getting by. And my teacher's like, "Are you serious?" She said, she pulled me off to the side and she said, "Sweetie, like, what is your plans in life?" And I'm like, "Well, just go to college, you know, do the cookie cutter." You know, I gave her that answer. Yeah. What everyone does. She goes, "Do you see what you're doing here? There's nothing. Like, you're not going to do anything with this." And she's like, "You have so much potential. Like, the way you speak to people and the way how nice you are and you're personable and all this stuff. Like, why are you limiting yourself by not trying?"
Wow. Game
changer. That next year, I got straight A's. I got a full ride to IUP for academics, and all I did was like try, and I wasn't even potential. That was just me trying.
Yeah.
And she saw that. So like with teachers, they see that every day.
Yeah.
Now, you're talking about environment. They're in the academic environment, and they have to nurture this, and they have to go people. Like, we all put limits on ourselves, but you have to have someone looking out for you, as if it's your mom.
Yeah.
Now, my parents were always supporting, but
Sure.
like this was just at this moment just resonated with me my whole life.
Why? Why her? Why her? What do you think was the reason? I mean, because I'm sure you've heard it from a couple other people, teachers. Why her?
Because
how she approached you, was it genuine? Just because?
Oh, for sure. Everyone hated her, but because she kept it real, she would call people out and she would say stuff
firm but fair.
Yes, exactly. And you know, it came to the point when she just pulled me to a side, and her demeanor changed, her body language changed. I'm really attuned to body language, and I could feel it. And what she was saying was like from the heart.
Yeah.
And that was totally different, because someone that wasn't my parents, because at that time your parents are just annoying. You know, you're a teenager.
Right. You know, you knew everything.
Exactly. So this person didn't have any reason to tell me this, but yet she took time out of her day, which was minuscule for her, but changed my life. So environment, she we're in school, but she facilitated the environment for me to see, wow, I do have potential. Maybe I just got to do something about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd never forget that moment. It was big.
So the moment that I was talking about was in second grade, and it was in the school system, where it was a complete opposite, where I had a teacher tearing me down, and telling me I wasn't anything basically, and so was trying to fail me based off of illegitimate reasons. Anyway, long story short, my mom comes in and hires a tutor. I don't know if you remember. She bought a desk for our house, had me, and I felt like a dummy, like genuinely felt like a dummy. Because I was like, wow, I gotta do a lot of extra stuff here. Like, this is crazy. Like, I felt like I had to prove myself. Mm-hmm. And she did all that. The results were not in, nothing. And I remember her sitting me down, says, you might have to do second grade over again. And I remember, like, just asking, I'm like, why? Like, I know for a fact I do everything everyone else is doing. My grades weren't that bad to, like, completely flunk me. I just wasn't understanding. And she goes, well, I just want to put this in the back of your mind just in case, whatever, I'm going to fight for you to, move on to the next grade, whatever. So finally we get like a state approved test that I took, like a private test or whatever. We gave the results came in, submitted to the principals, my mom, this teacher, the tutor, all these people sitting around in some boardroom, and said there's literally no reason why this kid should be held back. Second grade, he's doing reading and math at a 6th grade level. And so from there on, it was just my belief in my mom more. Anything she said was like gold to me. And then it was kind of the same thing for me. 6th grade, I had a teacher by the name of Miss Ryan. I don't know if any of you guys remember Miss Ryan. Mm-hmm. Miss Ryan, who by trade was really like an art teacher. So she had this funky way of teaching.
She was quirky.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And so she would say stuff to me. This is the same year I wrote that book, The Lion Queen, that I swore was not The Lion King. And she was one of the ones who pulled me aside. She was like, "You're so much more creative than this." Same thing. She's like, your demeanor, the way you act. I see you're doodling while I'm teaching. And your artwork is pretty good. So when she started talking to me, she's like, you realize everything you do is going to affect your future. Dude, I took that to heart. I'm like, wow. And from then on, I was an honor student from 6th grade all the way up through my senior year. But it is, if none of that little stuff happened, and I think that happened for a reason, obviously, but our environment is huge. It is absolutely huge, and not all of us are, fortunate to have, positive environments. But if you have that one person who is speaking life into you or speaking some level of like positivity, for your growth, whether you realize it or not, whether you think it's annoying, whether it does not matter, it's doing something to your subconscious mind. And a lot of times our parents tell us things, a million times actually. But the problem is, I think as a kid, is that's also the same person who's telling you can't sleep over your best friend's house. Mm-hmm. You have to be here by this time. No, you cannot get a cell phone. I'm not paying for that. It's that same person, but they're also dropping gems along the way that we don't appreciate. And I think that's the reason why we don't appreciate it, because we're being told a bunch of other stuff amongst the mush. That when a Miss Q comes up and says something, or Miss Ryan comes up and says something, it's more meaningful. Mm-hmm. And we hold that a little bit more near and dear. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. And I got one of you for Against Me, like a dream killer. Yeah. This was the guy it was important for this college professor that everyone will like him. And
it's so weird.
He said, are you really going to go to grad school? Because I don't think you can do it based off what you're doing in my classroom.
Wow.
What? It's like really early in the semester too, and like
that's so odd.
And you
that's
never know
what strange thing to say.
And you know what? Which is fine. Like if you thought my work wasn't adequate, but you never know what people are going through.
No,
you never know what people are going through. And I thought that was crazy. So when I got to my master's program, I was hungry, and I get the haters. He was what I was in my head. Yeah. So not only did I get my master's.
Serious?
Oh, he was dead serious for sure, because he was considered. He's like, I'm
going to have to fail. Hold on. Did he think he was helping you to try to save you, or he was just being a jerk?
No, not at all. No, remember, I could tell you every body language, right. And he was dead serious. Like, so in class,
but dead serious. But
that's such a weird thing to say to somebody.
Genuine. Trying to help you,
no,
or was
I believe he was just gonna try to stifle
my dreams. On what level,
dreams.
though? I'm very curious. On what level? Because first you started off the comment saying there's a guy who was very important for him for people to like him. On what level is it that was he trying to get?
It's so odd.
I don't know. because I was always cordial and polite. There was no reason to go up and to be like that and disrespectful to any college student. Like I said, you never know what people are going through.
Right.
But he made it a point to say that to me, and I don't think he's ever said anything like that to anyone else.
Crazy.
So not only did I get my master's degree, but I did it in a year. So I was hustling.
Yeah.
So did it change you? Were you hurt at first? You had to be hurt.
Oh, of course. Just distraught, because it's the guy everyone wants to like, and he is a likable guy.
Right.
And then when he says that to you out of the blue, wow.
I'm just very curious. Love to get into this guy's brain for that particular moment. What does he benefit from that? Is did he really think that? I'm so confused.
I believe wholeheartedly he does. Because he's in a college town and the college environment, and all he knows is academia.
Yeah.
So being smart, or so to speak, is very important to him. And, he has somewhat power in that world. He controls grades and, believes he's influencing kids. And then he did the opposite with me, which actually in that moment in time was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
In my pursuit.
Oh, he gave you motivation.
Oh, absolutely. And I've never had someone go against me so blatantly.
That's awesome.
Which was interesting, considering I'm an adult learner at this point. Yeah, maybe 19, 20 years old or whatever it was, but still, I'm not a little kid anymore, So
in your opinion, why do we set limits on ourselves?
I think people are genuinely afraid to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think it's as simple as that, but in that same statement, it's extremely complex.
Sure.
I mean, I hate to use a Spider-Man quote, but with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And it comes to when the more you do and the more successful, it involves more. It's like the more you get paid, the more responsibility comes with the job. And not everyone has the guts to go do that or get what they want.
Yeah.
So, it comes down to it. You just got to want to do it. And I hate to use that, but the potential's there for everyone, but you got to do it. I don't know. It's so hard.
Seems like the formula is so simple, right?
But
just
it's not.
do it,
I know,
right?
but it's not at all.
At the same time.
Because
no. So sometimes things are that simple. It's not easy,
right?
No.
But it is simple. It's as simple as
Touché.
getting up at 5:30 every morning, doing your workout, and having success habits, so to speak. But it's definitely not easy.
No, not by any means.
And I do think there is something, to what you just said. There's something to be said about the responsibility part when someone starts something, because they're like, oh gosh, if I start, becoming, like a healthy eater or working out, now I have to live up to this thing, because who the heck gives up in the first week kind of thing. So I think we put pressure on ourselves to live up to this thing and put that limit,
Yeah, so some people use these things even if they don't mean to as like a way to get out of the things. So they don't mean to do it, but if they say it, all right, then they have a way out. But so for example, statistics show as it pertains to healthy living or lifestyles, the most successful people don't tell a soul they're doing it, and they just do it.
Right.
Because when I tell Gabe, I'm going on this crazy new diet, low carb, I'm just going to eat air for the next 3 weeks. And then the first sandwich I have in mind, he's low key judging me.
Yeah.
It's not his fault. It's just human nature.
Very judgmental.
But it is.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
The first person to be like, oh, I thought you were on a diet.
Then you're scrutinizing everything.
Exactly. And then
unintentionally.
Exactly. And I don't really, it's just the way that people are too. You don't mean to do it, but it's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and another thing I think that's huge is most people do not like change, and there's just this hard, I don't even know, this block, this wall, something's there where it's like, oh Lord, we genuinely like comfort, and the second something comes and is going to change that, I actually just read today, I forget what it was, one of these success, IG handles, and they wrote Will Smith's 8 tips to success, or to live a successful / happy life, and one of them is to become basically comfortable with change or embrace it. And I do believe the people who make the biggest difference in the world are the ones that embrace change, awkwardness, tough conversations, tough situation. It's those people. And there was something that was said, whether it's your ability or you're willing to do something most people aren't. So that's what your income is gonna say. So when you start a business, you do something most people aren't. Most people just want a paycheck and be comfortable and have, their little retirement plan, and that's that.
Right.
They just walk out the door and work's done.
Right. But the mindset of an entrepreneur is totally different, where it's scary every day, or there's just thought or this worry in the back of your mind, like, oh Lord, is this going to work out? What are we doing this week? What are we doing today? How is this? What's my clientele going to look like? All these questions day in and day out. But then there's a reason why there's that separation in number one, income, mindset, a bunch of stuff. And then again, obviously you're going to have like your naturally gifted people who also fine tune that, hence, artists, athletes, things of that nature. But I think we all have that. It's just a matter of embracing it and sharpening our tool. So those things are very physical. Like an athlete, like there's these guys that are, chiseled like Greek gods out of birth. And it's like, dude, Lord knows I cannot compete with that. Hands down. Like, this dude's already started there, and then he's enhancing it, right? And then he's working out, and he's eating healthy. It's like, I have no shot at competing with that, right? Or no matter how bad I try, how great I sing in the shower, I'm not going to be, whoever the greatest singer is of our time currently, whatever. But there's people who already can sing, and they're taking vocal lessons, and they're, drinking honey or whatever every day, whatever they do. I think we all have that. We just have to recognize what it is for ourselves. I'm not saying we're singers. I'm not saying we're athletes. But there's something I feel that we have, or that we can embrace or sharpen, that it will separate us from the pack.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny that you mentioned change. So one of my favorite quotes, and for all your listeners out there, I am the Michael Scott of quotes, and I'm awful at quotes. But Bruce Lee has a quote, and he just says, "Be water." Yeah. Be water, my friend, and just pretty much go with the flow as best you can. If you're going to flow over something, just go through it. If you're going to go around it, whatever gets you there. But if you're just stuck in a straight line, most likely there's going to be hurdles. But if you can get around it, over it, through it, under it, whatever you got to do, you have to do. Yeah. And that's literally what I did as I went through school. And I keep bringing up school because, as I said, my whole life I've been in college for the most part. So I've been there. I've had to I really want to go out, but I got to adjust. Like, I have a big test tomorrow someone in college, that's a big deal. Like, you miss out on something. You live through FOMO. Like, you don't want to miss anything. Yeah. So just getting there and adapting to everything, and being a nurse, I literally lived changed by the minute. You think someone's good, and all of a sudden they're coding, and it's a whole different, someone's life is in your hands. So as I feel, as foreign as adapting is, I didn't realize how much it was entrenched in my professional life that I had to learn. And that is a tough thing to do. And I get people why they fear change. I have old couples, and this is my fitness world. They've lived the same life, Wednesday spaghetti, Thursday's pizza night, for 50 years. And then when they both have high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, that change is not coming easy. No. Yeah. And people are afraid to do it. Right. Because and not only is it hard, but it makes their sickness real. If they really all right, well, I have to change, because if not, I'm going to go blind, or I'm going to lose feet, or a feeling in my feet because I'm diabetic now. Mm-hmm. So change is, I think we underplay of how significant it is in our day-to-day things and what we decide to do. For sure.
I love it. In your opinion, why do you think people get down on themselves? And I say this because I feel like once you start, so now a person's going to take this like, all right, I'm going to embrace change. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do this. It's kind of a setup question, but none of the X, Y, and Z doesn't happen. Like, oh, here I am back at eating, spaghetti on Wednesdays and, tacos on Tuesdays. Like, I know darn well I should be eating better. But here I am again. Why is it that during that process people get down on themselves? I'll ask you, and then I'll say what my reasoning, or what I think.
People get down on themselves because we're in give me a pill society. I want it yesterday, and I want it to work now. So it's so hard. And depending on what your goals are, if you don't see results, you're just going to upset you. So in my fitness world, we never say look at the scale because the scale is so deceiving.
Right.
It's body composition. How do your jeans feel? How do your shirts feel now? You're also gaining muscle simultaneously as you're losing like body fat.
Right.
So the scale you may gain 5 pounds, but you're stronger, you're leaner, So when people don't see it, then they're like, oh, well, it's not working. Forget it. I'm out. They check out, boom, done. And that's it. And then that's it. It's over and the door's shut. And it's not getting open again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's just for that. And that's just health, let alone anything else. I'm sure there's stand-up comedians that show up and get booed and they never go back on stage, even though they're funny, but they won't ever go back because they're afraid to get that boo again. Yeah. And I've heard you make references to comedians a million times.
Absolutely.
Because it's such a good and difficult profession.
Absolutely.
You really have to persevere.
Yeah. You're right there. And what they always say is the truth is right there. Yeah. Whether that crowd likes you, whether your jokes are good or not, it still depends on if that crowd likes you. You're going to have the heckler.
Oh, yeah.
To piggyback on what you're saying, because I agree, is a lot of it too, and I believe whether it's expectations that people put on us or our own expectations, whether they're realistic or not, and I genuinely believe a lot of our expectations are not realistic, which leads to frustration, which leads to us, quote, getting down on ourselves. I think that, the person that health-wise, let's just say that they're clinically, they literally need to lose 50 pounds. It's not a looks thing. It's a health issue. It's like, dude, you got to drop 50 pounds. If someone were to tell me that, and then I put the expectation of I'm going to lose 50 pounds by next week, right? That 9,000% will not happen. Number one, in a very natural way, I should say. And then Friday comes, it's the end of the week, and I lost 4 pounds, which genuinely speaking is great because every other week I was putting on 4 pounds. But it didn't meet my expectations. And even though, as you're saying, there was growth, I'm down on myself because my expectations were this, and I came here, and it's not even close. You know what? Forget the 50 pounds. I'm good now. Now I need 47 pounds or whatever it is, 46 pounds down. I'm good. I'm not even doing this. It's not worth it. This is way too hard.
Yeah. And then to run it back with environment, what are you looking at on your social media? Are you following Instagram people who are perfect, quote unquote, bodies and fit, but not taking into account Photoshop and all these other things? So, all right, I'm going to go on my fitness journey, again, just bringing up health, and then I don't look like these women or these men. They're out. Boom, done. Because it's just not what they want. Just bringing back the environment aspect to it. And there's multiple layers of all of this. And we can only scratch the surface in this short amount of time. But, in the end, you got to set yourself up for success. Go and think you're going to come in with a 6-pack abs in 3 weeks. That's crazy. You can do all the sit-ups in the world. But, it's not going to happen. So it's just hard. You're putting yourself on a pedestal, and you're going hard early, and then it's over. Then it's done.
How much do you think that everybody talks nowadays is like dream big, the biggest goals you could ever put in front of you is what you should be shooting for, right? But, just in the fitness aspect, you're looking at 6-pack, and that's your goal. It's like, yeah, that's the long term, but people seem to forget the short term. It's those little bumps. It's the 5 pounds, it's the 10 pounds, it's the 15 pounds to get there. They want, they're looking at the finish line, and they've barely even started the race. Meanwhile, you're a quarter of the way through, and you kind of give up because you're not at the finish line. It's to me, it's such a difficult. I guess it's a catch-22. Like, yeah, that is the big goal, but at the same time, there has to be a whole bunch of little goals to get there.
I think there's something to be said, which I think is not really technically taught enough, is the appreciation of incremental growth. And if you can appreciate the small things, the 3 pounds in 1 week, that's fantastic for anybody. I don't care what anybody says. Dude, you lost 3 pounds in 1 week. That's crazy. That's awesome. Good for you. Okay? Keep doing that, and in 2-3 months, you're like almost halfway at your goal. And in a half of a year, it's very in a healthy way, it's very possible to hit that 50 pounds.
Right.
Not saying that everyone's going to do it. Not
Right.
saying that everyone's body type is the same and it's even possible. But it's likely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what. If you lost 43, are you going to be mad? Right? No, you're going to be more motivated.
Mm-hmm.
It's the celebration of the incremental growth
Mm-hmm.
and the little wins, I think, is so underrated.
The sacrifice, the grind, the love of the grind.
1,000%.
Goose, you think you'd have all this when you first started being a barber?
No,
I mean, you can give a snippet of your career, and I've seen I'm not in your shoes, but I've seen the. If you're talking incremental growth.
So we are working on our visuals for this podcast, but for those of us who cannot see, Danny's talking about this beautiful barbershop. We are now holding the podcast in here, 105 Mark Street, Bristol, PA. It's gorgeous, huge, massive 20-foot ceilings. I don't even know how tall that is. I just took a guesstimate. It looks about that.
Good guess.
It's a good guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just beautiful beams going across the ceiling, gorgeous. And he started out, obviously as an employee, and then started out in a very tiny
300 square feet.
300 square foot barbershop to, I don't know
It's
what
like
this is.
1,200.
So that was a reference. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No
that was a
problem.
reference.
But yeah, like I see it as like he's my family, and I've seen this little
Yeah.
by little. And if you don't personally know Goose, every day is like a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
It's the love of the craft, the love of the grind. And then now he's here. I mean, talking to you, 18, 19 years old. This is a big jump.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what people dream for, have their own shop, let alone this beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like what you were saying. It's like some people right now that are in the industry cutting hair, they get their license and then they want this tomorrow. What I have right now, they took 10 years as a
Decades.
business owner,
Yeah.
but like almost 20 years as a barber to accomplish, and some people want it tomorrow already. And then, like, it just, for me, it was just baby steps. All right, I built my own little clientele in the basement. Then, all right, let me
By the way, you did cut Danny's hair, I think, or Danny's ear one time at our parents'
in
house
the basement?
Bristol. That was bleeding,
So-
gushing everywhere.
And then I was like, all right, let me work at a shop. Became an employee for someone, and then just kept growing little by little. And it was like a every few year type thing. And now it's like I'm here, and obviously it's not done, but it's like tiny little baby steps instead of everyone's trying to do like the growth. Like you just said, you're 300 pounds and out of shape, and then you want to be like 150 pounds and all ripped up. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
No.
You have to take those steps, and there's changes. Like, my journey here wasn't easy. I went through a bunch of stuff. I had to take a lot of steps backwards to make a couple steps forwards. And it was a lot of sacrifice. It definitely wasn't easy, but it's still like my mindset, my goal was this here.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just keep your eye on the prize, really, kind of thing.
And there's a lot to say. When I was talking, in reference to earlier, talking about celebrating the incremental growth, is also, I mean, it sounds freaking weird to say, but celebrating the struggle or celebrating the failures, it's not that you're celebrating it in like, awesome, I failed, this is awesome, but celebrating in a way that you learn from it, right?
Yeah.
And it's those moments that a lot of times where we don't want to, but that is where your biggest growth is going to be. Every time, if you could just think of it as a launching pad to the next level, it's like, wow. And a lot of us look at it and view it as a step down, but it's not. Everyone here has shot a rubber band from their finger, right? For it to get that to propel off your finger, you have to bring it back. It's almost kind of like one of those. So that's the setback, but it's going to launch forward to the next level. It's how I visually see it.
I mean, I got something with that. So my best client I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
You're talking about going backwards. So just so everyone's aware, I worked with the geriatric population. 65 is young in my mind, based off the people I've worked with. So I've worked with 65 that are going on 100 years old, the way their body is.
Yeah.
And I've worked with 90-something-year-olds who do think they're 65. But I had this middle-of-the-road lady, 75. She took a nasty fall. Now she's with a walker and doing something. And you're talking about realistic goals. She's like, I want to get off the walker. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, all right, I can respect that. You know, you're losing your independence. You know,
Yeah.
I got to talk her down because she wants to go run around now. Because now that she fell, and now she's got to prove to the world, like, I'm not old.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let's slow it down. Tell me something realistic you'd want to do. Oh, I just want to walk, do this and go up steps, which is still, in her predicament, it's a really big goal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's just, let's start something a little bit easier. She's like, well, I'd love to go to a place called Peddler's Village, which is like a little outdoor shopping area.
Yeah.
And I just want to walk with my family without my walker and
Yeah.
just, talk and hold my daughter's arm and go through it. So what we did, she took that fall. I was like, give me 2 months and see if you feel better. And so this was 6 months away, their goal. So we gave her ample time. So 2 months, she's like pulled the walker to the side now and doing like a couple steps without anything. And then we have a cane, and then we're improving, and then we're improving. 6 months later, she comes in and writes me a whole page. She's old, so she wrote a handwritten note.
Yeah.
Cursive,
Like it was
yes, cursive.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Catholic school handwriting, the nines. And she just says, "I just want to thank you, because I would have quit and I would have been in my couch on in my living room
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of my life."
Yeah. It's
And
huge.
she said when she got off, she pulled the walker like with the family, and then she tossed it to the side. And the family, her mom just started crying. She said, her daughter, which is her daughter, and just said, "What are you doing? Like, you're walking normal and all this stuff." And she's like, "I've worked for 6 months for this day to be here with you guys."
That's awesome.
Wow.
And it doesn't seem like a big deal to us because it's walking. We do it and we don't even think about it. But if you don't ever see Nana or Grandma or Pap or whatever you call your grandparents, you see them, but you don't see them every day with the struggle.
Yeah.
She worked her butt off for that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that most people don't realize. Like, it may seem she's just doing little menial things, but for her and her age, these were huge tasks.
Yeah.
Walking without falling was a big deal. So you just got to appreciate it. And like you said, small goals. We
Yeah.
got there, and I was like, look, this is what we did day one. And I'd remind her, this is where we started, and then we'd improve, and then go back and back and back. She was a brand new person in 6 months. But not the body. It was the mind that recovered the most.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I was just going to say that. I was like, more importantly than her actually, what that did for her emotionally, mentally, spiritually is like 10,000 more
Yeah.
important than physically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because physically, we're all at one point will eventually deteriorate to, maybe being bedridden or whatever it is. But if that changed her, that growth
Mhm.
where she's walking in her mind already,
Oh,
that
yeah.
absolutely priceless.
Oh yeah, and I'll never forget the.
And what a motivation she had.
Yeah, absolutely, because we just take it for granted. Like I had, not just to give an example, that's big for her. I had someone else who was just obese. All they wanted to do was get up 3 steps so they could visit their grandchild,
Wow.
because their house her granddaughter's house or her daughter's
Like a
house had
split
3
level or
steps.
something, yeah.
Then she couldn't walk up anymore. So that's why she showed up every day to the gym. Whatever person gets them up every day to get at the 5:30 gym session, or to go to the doctors when they're afraid of being sick.
Which is a very physical thing to highlight a little bit of what I was saying, not to pat myself on the shoulder, but the 3 steps, right? So celebrating every step, right? That first step, celebrate it. Step up, well, now I'm here. All right. I might not make it up these next 2 ones. Step back, do my thing. 2 steps, whatever, the following weeks or however, until eventually she was able to get up to 3 steps. It's celebrating steps 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That will get you, I'm telling you, in a much smoother, more appreciative way to step 3.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about one of my most passionate topics is motivation. Well, first let's talk about you. What gets you motivated?
So I've been going back and forth with this in my head, and so many things have motivated me over the years. So just a little background, I worked full-time and went to school at night full-time for 3 years consecutively. And if you're not familiar with nursing, you have to do clinical rotations every other weekend that entire time.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I needed to learn, my motivation was just knowledge. I wanted to walk into work one day and save someone's life. And as a nurse, you don't have that as an opportunity as often, but it comes.
Yeah.
But when it comes, are you going to be ready?
Right.
And I didn't want to not be ready for that situation.
Yeah.
And I think someone's life in your hands is a hell of a motivator.
Super heavy stuff.
Yeah. So people walk in and complain about to their nurses. You don't know what they're going through, not only physically but emotionally, about the the massive responsibility it is to take care of people.
Well, and then you're not their only patient.
No, yeah, you don't get me going on that. Yeah, I know.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
there.
my family's not the only one. You have your grandma or loved one, but I have 20 loved ones that I have to deal with. So
Sure.
but yeah, it's literally not trying not to kill someone when it came to it was like really important to me
Yeah.
because that'll stick with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
So what? So what you picked was an education thing, a knowledge-based motivator. What do people? What are some things that motivate, in your opinion, people?
A lot of times it's loved ones.
Yes.
So I work with older people, and Father Time is undefeated, and they start realizing they're not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
In the fitness world I worked with, wanting to see grandchildren. So doing it for someone else, the selflessness of it kept people more accountable than internal goals.
That's amazing.
Because I'll ask you, Jim, in your opinion, who's the easiest person to lie to?
Myself.
Exactly. Because there's no accountability.
1,000%.
Absolutely. So when I tell you, some people got the self-motivation to do it for themselves.
Sure.
But if it affects, your significant other, you're more accountable at that point. So for me, that worked a lot for other people. When it got to beyond you. Your father, there's a couple fathers at this table. What wouldn't you do for your child?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So and that was, I don't know what episode it was that I brought this up. But it was going along the lines of what you just said, is doing stuff for, it was almost like the pain. And I gave the story of the dog that was sitting on the porch, that was sitting on a nail, and it was just howling. And they're saying, what is wrong with this dog? It's just howling. It's just basically complaining about everything. Everyone that walks by is like, "Grr," whatever. And to a point where a kid walks up and says, what's wrong with this dog? And the owner says, well, he's sitting on a nail. And he's like, so why is he still sitting there? He says, well, it doesn't hurt bad enough for him to get moving. So even though he's sitting there complaining, the pain wasn't enough for him to actually do anything, do something about it. And a lot of people are like that, where they are in pain, or they'll complain about everything under the sun, but they won't do anything because the pain is not enough. And I'm saying this because we're talking about motivation. And if that nail was a little bit thicker, had a little bit more girth, or a little bit longer, that was his motivation. And so I do think a big motivator for a lot of people was pain, or the fear of getting the pain, right? So for me, there's a lot of stuff that I have experienced is very painful, just like all of us here. Everyone experiences pain. But if for me, I internalized it as, I never want to be there again. Mm-hmm. That motivated me. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I'm never putting myself in that XYZ position ever again because, I don't want to experience that again. That was a motivator. And I bring this up because I'm tired of hearing people say, money's a motivation, success. It's like, dude, if that's all you think about, that, I'm not taking that aspect away, but that's the same person who says being healthy is what you physically look like. That is not true. That's just a part of it, right? Just like mental health is just as important as your physical health. Dude, you could look like, like I said before, like a Greek god, but mentally, you're a garbage can. Mm-hmm. That's not good. Yeah. It's just not good. It doesn't matter. It's not, where you want to be you want all aspects, and everything's not going to be perfect at all times, but you want them all running on all cylinders, at least on a very healthy, consistent level. And you hear that backfire, you hear something's wrong, you hear that squeak when you hit the brakes, you need to take yourself into the, to the maintenance. You got to work on yourself and, get yourself checked out, whether it's with yourself or somebody else. But I'm just saying.
I have a question for you, Dan. You talk a lot about everybody else's motivation. What was it when, you were in the midst of full-time school and work 3 years? I mean, you weren't always positive. I lived it. You lived it. What was it that continued to push you forward? Because it wasn't pain at that point. You didn't enjoy the pain. I mean, what was it for?
I can honestly say I thoroughly enjoyed 2 of the 3 years, and it got really difficult, and the pain was so intense that I went numb. So literally the first day of nursing school, they say goodbye to your friends, say goodbye to your family. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's crap. That's not going to happen. I can tell you, and you, like you said, you lived, I didn't see you for weeks, or like I saw you in passing. It was just hard, like, you know, but you wake up and you got to do it, because when you're that close, it's almost there. And that kept me going. I'm almost there. And there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You know, one more step. If I take a couple more steps this day, it'll be a couple closer. Then it's the next day. But when it came down to it, the love of the grind was there, but physically I exhausted. I don't think I can honestly say I gave 100% of everything I've ever had to nursing school. And it was a heck of an experience, because it's a responsibility. And I had financial commitment outside of school. So I'm working 40 hours in the morning, then going to school, and then school's 16 hour, 18 credits, but then I have to study. And then on the weekends, I have to go to clinicals, which are 8 hours Saturday, Sunday. So after that, I have to study for these exams. So it was just every day going through it. All right, today I got to learn this. And all I did was set small goals. I lived in 72-hour increments. What do I have to do today, and what's due within the next 48 hours? And small things. I have to learn this page. I have to learn this page. And small motivations every day going through. That's all I could do, was just literally to survive at that point. But my will was so much stronger than just quitting, because quitting would have been too easy. Not only is the financial commitment, but the emotional toll. I wouldn't be able to like see myself or look in the mirror if I would have bailed on that.
So how does one? I know you had mentioned this on a sidebar conversation me and you have, about getting remotivated. How do you remotivate somebody who's lost it, so to speak, in a sense where they're just like, all right, I guess this is it. This is my history books. It's just not going to happen.
So what I can say for you right now, like, is I'm in that phase right now. I'm trying to remotivate myself, because it's like a dog that chases a car. All those times it chases the car, but it never catches it. When you finally catch it, now what do you do with it?
Right.
So all 18 years to 30 years in school, I finished everything I wanted to. Now what do I do with it? I don't have anything to live for as it pertains to school and like improving myself. There's no tests to go to. There's no anything. So now I'm looking on what's the next phase. Like I said, I went through puberty and I went through all this growth. Now what? So I'm trying to figure out what to do. So to remotivate myself, this was actually an excellent opportunity to get back and why I'm doing what I do.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this pretty intensely for the last week or so. And I need to challenge myself. So I got to take care of myself, because unfortunately in my occupation as it pertains to the fitness world, you lose a lot of credibility if you're an overweight personal trainer. It's like being an obese nutritionist. Like, if that's an oxymoron, you know. So I got to get, not only do I have to live it, but I have to like physically play the part as well for credibility. And you can know what you're talking about. But so I need to get myself together in this way. So between nursing school, I probably went through a bout of depression and, you know, all these other things. And people, you can be the most motivating person in the world, but you get beat up after a while. Mm-hmm. Everyone goes through it. It could be, you know, heartbreak. It could be loss of a loved one. Everyone has it, but at the remotivation, how do you find it? I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
That's different for each person.
Yeah.
And we have these small instances in life where that's changed us. I don't think I can wait for anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
I think I have to just go and start putting myself in a position to become more successful or do what I want to do. So at this point, for my remotivation, I have to take care of myself first, and then it'll come. Because I'm putting myself in a situation now where I'm going out and talking to people within the field and doing other things that I normally wouldn't do. So I got to get to the point where I can wake up and be like, all right, this is what I got to do today to get to where I need to go. I don't have that right now. Yeah. And school was, I mean, when you're doing something for 12 years, you just assume it's always going to be there, and then it's not there.
Yeah, I think it's huge having the understanding of making adjustments, okay? And so in our minds, I believe, I think it's just natural thing that we all do is to set a goal and then in our minds plot out how it's going to happen. And the funny thing about life is it never happens that way.
Never.
Sure.
And so it's making adjustments. We're in the football season, right? Even if you don't even, like football or watch it, I'm going to give you a very easy, thought or idea to think about. Sometimes there's teams that study their opponent all week long, or for whatever. For most part, you only get a week. I'm sure they do it in the off season, but the season comes high and fast. So you have this week, and you're studying your opponent, and you're seeing a lot of the things that they do, what they do offensively, what they do defensively, what their quarterback likes, and you make adjustments to that game plan. Here's what happens during the game: that other team is doing wildly different things than what you had prepped for. And so you have to make in-the-moment judgment calls and adjustments and change your game plan, sort of, not nothing crazy, but it's tinkering, so to speak, their game plan. You'll see teams call timeout. They just want to see what formation was that other team going to go out in. Time, they saw it. All right, let's do this. And Manny, you could probably speak to it more playing in high school. And it's these things that you have to make. Forget the sports arena. It's adjustments like that. I think because in our heads, it still goes back to expectations. In my mind, I think the reason why people get frustrated and how to get remotivated, for me, is if you have the ability to constantly be okay with making those little tinkering adjustments, because the target's going to keep moving, and it's going to laugh at you at some points. And that's a very depressing thought. If you're busting your tail off day in, day out, as you expressed earlier, sacrificing literally everything, and it's a dancing little, end result. That's frustrating. That's brutal. That's ugly. But if you can adjust, I think it'll help. I think it'll help with the getting reacclimated to, all right, my game plan has to change. Roll out the map or whatever it is, the blueprint, so to speak, and move. All right, that window got to go over here. That door got to go here because apparently, the sun comes in at a crazy angle. We got to change things. You have to, again, it's adapting. But knowing that, you can have this greatest plan, and I think it's a lot of times, because I did it, and that's the reason why I speak so strongly or passionate about it. There's a book out there called The Art of War, and they talk about you can have the best game plan in the world, but you also have to prepare for what if they don't do what we think they're going to do, right? So we're thinking they're coming from the east. What happens if they come from the west? We have 5,000 troops over here and only 2,500, half our teams over here, and they got 10,000 coming from the west. Now we just screwed ourselves. You have to be able to somehow manipulate your game plan along the way and be okay with that. And I know what it is that we become so passionate and so we're so emotionally invested into something, and you want it and you want it and you have to have it and you have to have it your way, because now this is insane. I worked way too hard. There's no way this is switching up on me. How can life be that brutal? It is. It's that ugly. If you can make adjustments, dude, you're gonna cry. You're gonna go to your knees. This thing is brutal. But if you can and cry, here's my thing: feel all that. You know why? Because when the success comes, it's going to be that much more tasteful. You know what I mean? You're going to taste every little granularity of whatever the heck it is. That Sunday sauce when you're having that meatball. Whatever the heck it is, you're going to taste every little thing. Or in our culture, the rice and beans and the pork chops are dripping. You're going to taste all of that when the success comes, because the struggle, the pain, but you're willing to make the adjustments. Is it comfortable? No. Very uncomfortable. Is it, I don't know, is it something that you want to do? No, you don't want to do it. But I do think if we can constantly make those adjustments and admit to them. So there's a thing where, we call it denial, right? So if you are a personal trainer and you're saying, like, it's hard to sell yourself if you don't look like a Greek god or whatever it is. admit to it and just move on. I think we ponder about things so much that we ourselves are holding ourselves back. A lot of times people know what they should be doing. It's embracing it, accepting the truth, and actually, taking on the change and the challenge. It's huge. But if you go into this thing knowing, I know one thing I'm going to teach my sons is knowing your target is going to constantly move. Be okay with that.
Not only be okay with it, but it's the try, fail, adjust. Try, fail, adjust, because like Jim says, in a game, you can make an adjustment and it's not going to work. Well, guess what? Readjust again. You have to be okay with whatever adjustment you make might not be successful, in this particular instance. So you got to be okay with the fact that you might fail, readjust, fail, readjust until you get that success. So be okay with the adjustment and understanding that adjustment might not work, and you got to be okay with that. And then move forward, find a new adjustment, find the success path that works for whatever situation it is. Because you're always you're gonna fail, like you said, and you're gonna adjust, but that adjustment might not be the one you need. So adjust again, until you get it right. You have to be okay with that failures.
Yeah, I mean, I can only guess, but I'm assuming all of you guys have learned significantly more, or at least it's stuck with you longer, the failures than the successes, for sure.
Always.
Yeah, I mean, that's without saying. I mean,
It's a driver, especially someone who wants it. If you want it bad enough, not to be like cliche or corny or whatever, but it's the old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. If somebody wants something bad enough, listen, it's not going to be the way that you probably had in your head, but you will figure that bad boy out. And there's a strength that comes with this. The one thing I will say is loving on yourself. If you can love on yourself and appreciate that you are human, and you're going to make mistakes and things aren't going to be pretty, if you're okay with that, you're on the right way.
I do feel bad for people who've never had the experience of giving their all to something. Like, as much as we make it sound like the sacrifice, but that reward when you finally get something like that after you give it your all, I don't think there's anything like that. Like, I really hope people can do something once in their life.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I can confidently say that many people do not do anything close to 100%.
Absolutely.
In their entire life.
That's crazy. That really is.
You don't have that mindset. It's hard for you to think that way, to never not try hard.
Yeah, well, it's like when that target's moving, some people freeze. And that's it. They don't know. They can't adjust. They just freeze. Deer in headlights. They just stop.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't move.
Yeah.
And that's it. They get run over.
One of the dope concept to think about is bet on yourself. If you could bet on yourself, I think that that will build your confidence to a point where it's like, dude, I know this isn't how we wanted it. I know this isn't how I planned it. This, X, Y, and Z happened. We lost loved ones along the way. This isn't how I thought it was going to be. All these things, but if you could bet on yourself, you're going to get up and make those adjustments. If you know it's all on the line, it's literally up to you. All right. Anyway, before we get into the next closing topic, our advertiser for the podcast for this episode is Central Jersey Beer and Wine Festival, featuring over 170 beer and wine samples, live music, food vendors, and more. Saturday, October 12th. Please visit cjbeerfest.com for tickets and more information. All right, Dan, so back to you in closing. So people know that you are obviously the working professional. You went to, school for so many years, highly knowledgeable, well educated. What is your recommendation to anyone trying to, manage the work-life experience along the way? As you said, they tell you, say goodbye to your friends and family. What's your recommendation after going through all that?
Not an easy question, because if you're really all in, that's all you're going to be thinking about in the moment. But you are sacrificing moments. Unfortunately, my brother, I missed probably some moments with my niece and nephew, which is tough. You got to be able to talk to yourself, and it's okay to not be 100% all the time.
Yeah.
Like 50% occasionally is okay, because you don't ever want to turn it off, because sometimes it won't go back on.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I wish I would have backed off a little bit, because those couple points don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. That's just a test, or you're going to miss a birthday. That's going to, in the end, that's going to be a little bit harder than everything. So listen to the people around you when they say, just relax, like go do something else for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they see you, but you're so tunnel vision that you don't see anything else. Listen to the people, especially if you know they care about you. Because I'd lost friends on the way because they weren't on the same wavelength as my grind at the time. But the ones that stuck around, I was like, all right, yeah, they probably are right. I should probably like back off for a little bit.
With that said, it was easier for me as a father to tell my kids that their uncle was fighting or striving for something greater. That's easier, and it was more fun and empowering to tell them, like, listen, he's sacrificing, because I understood that you were sacrificing for a bigger picture. He's fighting for something that he wants. This is something he wants to be good at and be successful. It was easier for me, and it made me proud to tell my son that Theo's working for something harder than than come into whatever, a baseball game or whatever it might have been. And in fact, in turn, when you did come, it was that much sweeter for him. It was like, oh my God, he's here. So don't get lost. Don't let that sway you either. When you're focused, know that people are supporting you, because it's a hell of a lot easier for me to tell my son that Theo's grinding for something much bigger than this baseball game. So that's kind of the catch-22 as well. You sacrifice for something bigger, and it's okay, because I can tell him that and be proud that you did that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well said. You guys want to hug that out? Or? Okay.
Exactly.
I'm more of a chest bump kind of guy.
Yeah.
All right, so last question. What is your recommendation to anyone trying to get motivated on their own? So, and the reason why I position the question in that manner is because a lot of times people know they need help. They don't want to, quote, admit it to someone else that they need help. So they try to figure it out on their own. And that is very okay, in my opinion. I think that's okay, is in a very healthy way anyway, I should say. But if you're just trying, in terms of motivation, I should also make that clear. If someone's trying to get motivated because like, all right, dude, I've been down in dumps or hard on myself or something, whatever it is, and they want to get motivated on their own, first try it out, whether that works or not. What is your recommendation? What do you think, or what's your recommendation on how they should start or their approach should be?
Well, in the nursing world, my philosophy was I can't help what I don't know.
Yeah.
So inside what your personal issues are that you would like to work on. But you have to send signals out for other people to help you, because you can't always help yourself with everything in life.
Sure.
So you have to put yourself in a vulnerable position at some point.
Yeah.
So nothing is going to be done alone. Someone's going to be involved no matter what you do in life, like it or not. I'm sure, I don't know if any of you guys are managers, but you still have to deal with people. You have to manage people, talk to people. Other people aren't thinking about you the way you're thinking about yourself. And the thing is, if you don't tell people like, yo, I'm super depressed, my girlfriend just dumped me, I don't want to do anything, I'm over it, yo, I've been there. Like, because people understand things, you just have to let them know.
Yeah.
So whenever you become honest, whatever thing you're doing or having an issue with, start there.
Yeah.
Once you accept that, all right, I'm 350 pounds, something's got to happen, my knees are shot, I'm 29 years old, something's got to go. That's the motivation. Acceptance. Because once you know what the problem is, then you can start moving forward and putting yourself in that place to go forward.
Yeah.
Even a step at that point, anything is better than nothing. Even signing up for a gym membership, you had to go there to do it.
Yeah.
Or you had to put the money involved. That's a step. It may not work out, but you're going in the right direction. You have to just start somewhere and have people help you, because people know things, or people know people, and they can get you where you go. Those AA meetings and stuff, people have been there. They're trying to help you get out of whatever position you may be. You just have to let people in. So start off there, knowing what you need, and then letting people help you.
I love it. I know for me, just really quick, a lot of people think that getting out, a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of money involved. start small is my recommendation. Start very small. Just as much as you jumped on YouTube and you looked on how to change a taillight, how to cook, your favorite, random dish for dinner, you can also go on YouTube, which is what I used it most. Well, first initially started out for music, but then realized there's a ton of information out there for the personal development industry, and it's free. And you hear a lot of motivational talks. You hear a lot of inspirational talks. A lot of one common thread that I found is a lot of successful people either read or go to or listen to other successful people's biographies, because you get to the understanding that not everyone just got it like that, or everyone just is bada bing bada boom. The creator of KFC started the whole thing when he was 65 years old. 65 years old. I'm not talking about how much you like this guy's chicken or not. The fact is, this dude became a household brand, and at the age of 65. Abe Lincoln, same thing, kind of like a late bloomer into the political arena. It's more about, and once you start reading that builds your that's encouraging. Like, dang, I got time. You know what I mean? Like, all right, so I can figure this out. They didn't figure it out till 65 or whatever it was. I still I have plenty of time. And you start there, and then you'll start, especially YouTube. YouTube's fantastic, right? You can also go into the rabbit hole with YouTube. You start off very inspirational movie over here, and then all of a sudden it's koala bear eating a eucalyptus leaf. I have no idea how I ended up here, but this is what YouTube does to you. But if you can pay attention to, where you are in the midst of the craziness, start small, use your resources. A lot of the stuff that me and Gabe did, from the podcast to the motivational albums to, the lifestyle brand, all that stuff is using our resources. You start small, and little by little, you'll start finding bigger resources. Cool? Awesome. We like to end our podcast with quotes, and the first one is by Coleman Young. Great name, by the way. Courage is one step ahead of fear. And the second one is by Lance Armstrong. Pain is temporary. Quitting lasts forever. Reactivated. In this episode, we have special guest Danny Cuevas. We cover topics that range from being a corporate professional, motivation, choosing career paths, human potential, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Lance Armstrong and Coleman Young. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.